Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. I am just making sure that the streams are working here correctly because I'm doing a few different things and I knew there was going to be some feedback here. So just bear with me for a second while I'm setting this up. There we go. All right. Okay, here we go. I think we're good. So welcome, everybody. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension. So good to be here with you all. I'm going to be bringing on Alan. He's in the back room right now in a second. Just want to say hello to everybody. We got Connie in the house. We got John, Joanne, John Wong, Jian, Cecilius from Sacramento. Welcome, beautiful people. Happy solstice, Saturnalia, Kwanzaa, pagan origins of Christmas, mushroom holiday, end of the year, rotation around the sun worshiping day. Happy to all of this because this is a beautiful time of year for us to pay reverence on the darkness overcoming, well, the light, overcoming the darkness. So we're going to have a little bit of fun today and be exploring what the theme is around this time of year. And I'm excited because the presentation, this is the fourth year in a row, guys, the fourth year in a row that I've done this presentation, and it's been an evolution. And over the last week, I've had these downloads that have completely not shifted, but I'll say added to my perspective on what is going to be shared today, especially when it comes to sun worshiping and the connection to Saturn. So a lot of times we have a lot of fun with this. Today, we're going to have a lot of fun, but there's also going to be some mind-blowing revelations in regards to what happened when Christmas was hijacked and we moved from the worship of the sun to possibly the worship of Saturn. So we'll be talking about that. But first, what I want to do is I want to bring on Alan Steinfeld because I did tell you guys that this is going to be a launch party for a new website, but unfortunately, the site still is not done. So the site will be done the beginning of next year in January, and we're going to have the Ultimate Star Beings Conference, and that will be the launch party. That will be the official launch party, 4-day free conference, and we're going to have 10 hours a day. We have a panel day right before, so technically it's 5 full days. And during that event, not only are we going to have thousands of people involved, but we're also going to go ahead and talk about our new website and celebrate 14 years of Portal to Ascension history. So it's kind of like a milestone event for Portal to Ascension. So let's go ahead and move into now bringing on Alan Steinfeld. I don't really need to do an introduction for him, even though he loves introductions. And I just called him 10 minutes ago to bring him on, because this is a celebration of this time of year, and I want to celebrate and bring on the person that means, one of the people that mean the most to me, and that has been one of my biggest supports and is such a huge part of Portal to Ascension. I really couldn't be doing anything I do on this level without him. So here he is, Alan Steinfeld, everybody.
Thanks, Neil. I'm glad to be here. I'm really excited about the launch of the new website, and I think the beginning of the year is good. But you're right about this time being a holiday of the sun, because my feeling, there was no media, there was no technology back in those times, although they had incredible structures, but they would watch the sky. That was the entertainment, watching the sky. And if you watch the sky at this time of year, you know that the sun sort of stays, the sun sets and rises at particular locations on the horizon. This is the shortest distance between the rising and the setting of the sun. People don't even see the rising and setting of the sun. There's too many buildings in the way. But if you were to look out and see the rising and setting of the sun, you would see that it sets more to the, it's the longest part. Sorry. It's the long, it sets more, it rises more to the north and sets closest to the south. Anyway, it's the longest night, shortest day of the year, because it's based on the rising and setting of the sun. And then there were 3 days when the sun didn't change its location on the horizon. And on the third day, usually around December 25th, it was the return of the sun. The sun started to move, to start to spread more light. And that was a major moment from the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, 24th, and 5th. Those were days of celebration, holy days, where the energy of the sun started to increase, We've been through the darkest time, and now that was a major energetic holiday for the ancients who understood the energy of the stars, the moon, and the sun, particularly being the most powerful agent in the sky. I mean, nothing comes close to what the sun is. So it's the celebration of the sun, the return of the
Exactly.
sun. Of course, the Christians co-opted that into return of the sun, their own sun.
Right.
So
And it's kind of like a resurrection, right? Wouldn't you say? Isn't it interesting how the sun stops the lowest ebb, 3 days later it starts again? It's a resurrection of the sun.
it's the birth of the sun, really. This is
Reborning.
why the Christians, in order to gain the pagan audience, needed to bring their Christian story, their Christian
Yeah.
mythologies to the pagan so they can merge the pagan beliefs in with the Christian story and sort
Right.
of bring them into their church. And of course, the church did that, and lots of pagan sites, like the ancient goddess sites, all became churches. So,
Yeah.
we really have to trace our origins. I'm really excited. I think I've heard part of this that you're
Yeah.
doing. How
It's
how are
twice as
you?
long now. They've made it bigger.
It's not the
But
shortest day of the
Alan, let me
year, is
ask you
it?
this. This is a revelation I had, okay? Let me tell you my train of thought and you tell me what you
Yeah.
think. So, Sabbath, the Sabbath before Sunday was worshipped as the Lord's day, it was the Sabbath, right? The Sabbath is Saturn Day, which is the worshiping of Saturn. The Christmas was Saturnalia, which was also worship of Saturn. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like Elohim, who was the Saturn god, then became the sun god. It was like this one god that was the god of Saturn was basically said, "You will choose no other god but me." And the Saturn god became the sun god, almost like a misdirection that maybe it was never a sun worshiping religion. It was always worshiping Saturn. But when that god decided and said, "You cannot worship any other ones," took the throne right on top. And then one more thing,
Yeah, that
the
makes sense.
the Saturn is what? Chronos, the Lord of Time, right? Who
Right.
else? What other planet or celestial body dictates time in our solar system? The sun. So it was almost
Mm.
like a complete switch over, kind of like a bait and switch without humanity realizing it.
Oh, so you're saying people originally worshiped the sun, but then they transferred their worship to the Saturn forces. Actually,
Yeah,
David Icke has a whole thing about that on
it does. Yeah,
my interview with him, and that could be. I think the sun is the most direct, and the Saturn was the Titan that co-opted the original gods, the Titans that fought Zeus, which was
exactly.
Jupiter, and
Right,
so there's a lot more in the mythologies based on, I think, real entities than we've been actually heard of before. So these may seem
hmm
mythological stories, but as we're discovering, there's a lot of truth
based
into
on
in
realities. Yeah. So
based
hey,
on
we
reality.
have Saraswati in the room, and
Oh, hey,
she's
hey.
asking, why do you think Saturn has an energy of control?
Well, how does anything astrologically come into its definition or defining? It was observed, people felt, oh, this planet makes me feel this way, Jupiter makes me feel that, Mercury makes me feel more communicative. So they're able to, this is my theory, able to feel the energies of those planets, and Saturn just happened to be that one that controls and puts and structures. It's not just control; it's
Structure.
structure.
Yeah.
Like Capricorn, I think, is related to the sign of Saturn. So you need structure. When it becomes overly structured, it can be controlled. But
Right.
it's
Right.
all a balance. We need all those energies to kind of move in our lives to be more holistic. So I
Right.
don't know why that is that way, but people actually felt that. And now we have a whole astrological story that's based on that planetary energy.
Yeah,
That's
because there's a wounded version, or I like to say a harmonic version and disharmonic version of everything. So when it comes to Saturn, and we're gonna get into this, guys. The reason why I asked Alan this question is because I want to plant that seed in your consciousness of Saturn, and we're gonna go deep into Saturn. And but Saturn, Santa, Satan, right? All these are similar for some a reason. And then the control mechanism of Saturn has been created into a satanic figure, but that's just the disharmonic expression of a celestial body. I don't feel any celestial body is inherently evil.
Right. It's all, there's no necessary evil at all. It's all a balance of the light and the
Yeah.
shadow. You know,
Right,
we're
the
moving
shadow,
now.
exactly. It gives us the opportunity to do the shadow work, because that's why they even call it Saturn's return, right? It's you reflecting on your own reality.
Well, the Saturn return is the restructuring every 28.5 years in your life. So there's, we go through phases.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Is that okay, Saraswati? Did we answer your
I think she
question?
likes it. She says keep going.
Oh,
That's good.
oh, okay. Great. Okay, I'm seeing that. Okay. Thanks. But Neil, what is the scope of this lecture you're doing?
All right, so this is the pagan origins of Christmas and New Year's Eve, and we are going to be going into where all of our traditions came from, all the festivities, Christmas tree, reindeer, presents, ornaments, all of that. We're going to speak a lot about Santa Claus and figure out how the Santa we know today became the Santa. And we're going to go back around 4,000 years of Santa history up until Coca-Cola. We're doing the whole gamut, guys. And then we're going to also be talking about Saturn, the Lord of Time, and how that connects. And then end it with the New Year's Day and how we shifted from March being New Year's Day to January, and just kind of showing what Rome's role was in shifting our belief systems and our traditions to around this time. But the ultimate goal of this presentation is to really pay reverence for the origins of these stories and how we shift them over time. And instead of pushing them away, paying reverence to these traditions that we've held on for so long for specific reasons, and to move into a world of intentionality with them rather than doing things from blind faith.
Great. It sounds great. You're going to go for 4 hours, you said?
No, like an hour and a half.
Oh, an hour. Did you put it on my channel too, or just not yet? No.
It's not on your channel yet. No,
Okay,
you can
good.
take it later. Yeah, I'm being careful with the algorithms.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good luck.
Right.
I'll watch some of it. Say
Any
hello. Oh,
take the floor for 2 minutes, Alan. Share your
well,
soul with us.
I just think this year, 2024, is a pivotal year. I'm doing actually a prediction show on December 30th with Scott Katamas on that'll be on my YouTube channel, New Realities on the Global Peace Tribe. We're bringing up a bunch of astrologers and people looking at 2024 and seeing. I think this is a year that shifts energy. From 20, 21, 22, 23 have been a kind of rebalancing. And now we could take everything we've learned at those times and bring it into some new energy. It's really, people say it's always the fourth year in the decade where the decade really starts to take on the form and shape of what that's going to be. So we're moving it to 2024, like the arrival of the Beatles in 1964, was leading up to this big revolution, and boom, 64, 74, 84, 94. We're coming into this time, especially UFO announcements inside government. That's really going to be a huge change. I think there'll be a lot more integration of AI. I know people think there's a lot of negative things about AI, but I think it's really a tool that will help us. I think there'll be more far-reaching projects. There'll be more energy to do the projects you've wanted to do. I mean, before this, we're just coming out of the kind of COVID blues, and now we're starting really to move into some new energy. So look for some new adventures, new possibilities, new doors opening. I have some great adventures. People predict a lot of doom and gloom, but I think it's all up to us to see how we're going to create the world and realities that we want to live in.
Yeah.
And these are powerful times. I feel like an energetic push, an opening. Don't you feel an opening now happening?
Yeah, I feel this. I mean, we speak about this almost every day, right? It's just like such a huge transformation. Many things that we wanted to happen that ultimately, like, I didn't even realize it was going to happen on this level. This is what we were calling for. A lot of things to be disclosed, people to wake up to some deeper truths that we're not alone in the universe. And it seems like we're on a quickening right now for this to be coming through and unfolding including our ancient history, our true history, which is why we just
Mm.
did a 3-day
You
True
know,
World History Conference.
I just listened to this great interview with Chris Bledsoe, and that guy is receiving downloads and doing miracles, and he's really awakening to this new energy as a human being, doing incredible things like that we just hear about from avatars. So there's energy coming to people to make really positive change. There's a movie called The Spirit of Ubuntu. You know, I am because you are is how you translate Ubuntu. And that's a big movement now in Africa that's happening all over Africa. So there are societies coming together, and I think we're looking more at the big picture. I'm really excited about what's coming up, especially when I listen to David Grush, who came out as the whistleblower. He says he predicts more will come out to Congress and the world in 2024. And there was just a UFO that flew over Biden's plane approaching LAX, you know. So we're going to see much more UFO activity worldwide. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I feel that. So,
So
and just before you go,
yeah,
Alan, I'll just tell everybody, you know, of course, Alan and I are working together throughout the year, but then there's probably 3 large things that we're doing together, which is the Ultimate Star Beings Conference that I'll show you in a second, guys, so you can sign up for that. It's free. We're going to be in Glastonbury again together, and then we're doing a cruise, the first ever cruise ship, Celebrity Equinox, beautiful cruise ship, going to Honduras, Belize, and the Yucatan, December 14th to the 21st. And it's called Portal to Ascension at Sea Galactic Origins Cruise. So we're going to be 7 days with maybe 20 to 25 speakers, and we're going to get to go to ancient sites. JJ and Desiree Hertag, I'm pretty sure, are going to be there. We get to do some activations at these sites as well. So look forward to us sending out some details about these when we get to it.
Yeah. I have a lot of people who definitely want to go on that. I'm really excited about that. And just to be in a container like that where we could really all share knowledge will be really fun. All right, Neil, send me that. I have a lot of people interested, and let's
we'll
go
do that
for
in
it.
January. All right, sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, Alan.
Have a good day here. Let's talk like this week. Thank you, everyone. And hi, Susie, and
all right,
everybody.
Say bye to Alan, everybody.
Okay. Well, I'll see you. Neil, be in touch. I have some things to talk to you about. Okay. Yes.
All right, cool. Okay, talk later. Bye. All right. Here we go, guys. Now it's just us. Okay. And just want to tune in here. I want to take some time. I want to enjoy this. Okay. I want to enjoy this moment. Take it slow. See who's in the room. Have some interactions. We just have a message here saying, I don't know if anybody saw it, but a few minutes ago, an orb flew past Alan's face. Okay, we got to look back at that. Wait, hold on.
I want to see that. Wow, that's because I've been feeling some orbs around. Thanks. Definitely, let's look back at that.
Yeah,
okay?
we'll for sure. All right, see you, Alan. All right, and the replay, there will be a replay of this. So youtube.com/portal to ascension. We're live there now. Instagram.com, portal to ascension. We're on Instagram. I finally figured out how to go live on Instagram from StreamYard, which is epic. So we're on Instagram, instagram.com/portal to ascension, and on youtube.com/portal to ascension. Replay will be on YouTube. Check it back as much as you want. So now I have done this event 4 years in a row. You know, some of you may think that I commit to a lot of things because I've committed to Portal to Ascension for a while. But to be completely honest with you, this time of year is about vulnerability. What's really happened is I could never hold down a job, yo. I just couldn't stick with one job for a long period of time. I guess I could, but on some level, it's just boring to me. I really didn't like to work for people. And what I eventually ended up doing was creating a job for myself in which every event, it's like its own job. So even though we have Portal to Ascension, we have the umbrella of all these things that we're creating, it's always something new, different topic, different event, different types of production, new speakers to interact with, different ways to get this out to the masses. So that's been the flow with Portal to Ascension, and I've quite enjoyed it. Now, one thing, though, that I've always committed to for the last 4 years, is this presentation. Okay, the pagan origins, Christmas and New Year's Eve, every year Christmas Eve. And the reason why, as I said earlier, is it's extremely important for us to infuse this timeline with so much blind faith, so much commercialism, so much distortions, worshiping the birth of Jesus on the wrong day. I feel that it's important for just some people to infuse it with maybe some wisdom, some insight of really how we even got to this place in the first place and why we are celebrating specific days on this day. So this is what we're going to get into. So we'll start in about 1 to 2 minutes here. I'm going to pull up the presentation. But first I want to check in here. And I want to know, guys, who has not seen this presentation before? If you haven't seen this presentation before, give me an 1111 in the room. 1111 if you have not seen it before. If you have seen this before, give me a 333. Okay, 1111 if you haven't seen it before, 333. And ultimately, nobody has seen this before because this is an upgraded version of everything that I did in the past. So you might have seen some of it. All right, cool. I'd love to know that there's a lot of people that haven't experienced this, so I can go deep into it. All right, cool. We're infusing the chat with 1111s and some 333s. Beautiful. All right, so before I start the presentation, let's go ahead and just show you the Star Beings Conference here on Portal to Ascension. So quick announcement. First of all, get the announcements out the way. portaltoascension.org, new site launching in a couple of weeks. This is only the halfway mark of the site because you might be like, well, this looks like the new site. Well, no, it's not. This is only a halfway mark. We got a lot of more upgrades coming. Go to portaltoascension.org. Everybody on Instagram right now, go to portaltoascension.org, sign up, get hundreds of hours of free presentations. Same on YouTube. Everybody in StreamYard, you already have access, so you're all good. Go to portaltoascension.org, go to upcoming events, okay? You can sign up here to just get access to all the presentations, and you can watch later. But if you go to upcoming events, you can see here we have the Ultimate Star Beings Conference. We have the True World History Conference we just finished. We have How to Prepare for Contact with Extraterrestrials, a free event on New Year's Day. How to Prepare for Contact with ETs. The Akashic Records Conference is going to be a few days later. It's a paid event. And then probably the largest no-charge event I've ever done, the Ultimate Star Beings Conference on January 12th to January 15th. portaltoascension.org, upcoming events. Tune in there and sign up, free or by donation, 4 events, 33 presenters. We're going to be live on Instagram, Alan's YouTube, my YouTube, Joan's YouTube, Facebook pages, and we already have around 1,000 people signed up for the StreamYard. So right now we're looking at around 2,000 people joining a part of this event. Do you guys want to be a part of the 2,000 plus people and really tap into the awareness of why are we not alone in the universe? Who is visiting us? And what does this mean for humanity? And what are the messages that we're receiving from the stars and interdimensional realms? We are going to set that intention together and have an incredible time at this event. All right. Checking in on the chat. You guys ready for this? So we got a lot of people here involved today. This is really exciting. Welcome, Linda. Welcome, Cecilia, Martha. Okay, let's do it. Okay, Ria says that she is ready. Each one of us today, we're all beacons, frequency beacons. And as this information is coming through us, we're all the antennas to send the signal out into the cosmos so that we can step into intentionality. That's what this is all about. If I could summarize it down to the lowest common denominator or the highest common denominator, I would say it's all about being intentional. So welcome to the pagan roots of Christmas, New Year's, Saturn, and Sun worship, and the Christ consciousness by myself, Neil Arcturus Gaur from Portal to Ascension. And as we start out, as I love to do in all my presentations, is really talk about la preguntas, the questions. Why are we even doing this in the first place? And we have little bullet points with Santa's face here to help us realize what these questions are. So here are the questions of why. How can the most celebrated holiday that is from a monotheistic religion, right? Christianity, monotheism, Christmas, how can that be connected to paganism? What is the root of it all? Is there an origin to the stories? We're going to talk about the origin of the Christmas tree, gifts, ornaments, Santa Claus, the Christ consciousness, and the tree of life. And the New Year's, we're going to talk about the who, what, when, and why of New Year's. Who did it? What did they do? When did it happen? And why do we worship on this day? And why do I even say worshiping? First of all, a couple of days ago was the winter solstice, December 21st. So the best way to really start this whole thing is when it really begins, the winter solstice. The winter solstice has been celebrated in antiquity and has been seen as a significant time of year in many cultures and has been marked by festivals and rituals. It marked the symbolic death and rebirth of the sun. During this time, you also have the 3 days of darkness, which is the longest nights of the year, which to me represents the shadow work. And there's also a Mayan calendar connection here that we'll get to in a bit. Now, just to be interactive with everything here, and I want to see if I can pull this up for a second. Question to you all. Who has heard here about the 3 days of darkness, the prophecy? You know, before 2012, 2008, I heard about this as well. And then in up until 2012, a lot of people had prophesied that there were going to be 3 days of darkness. Right, and that when there's darkness in the sky all around, that was going to be a symbolization of the ascension. Okay, if you have heard about it, say yes. If you haven't, say no, because let's be a little interactive here, and I want to know, and then we'll speak about that. Okay, yes. So a lot of you guys have heard about it because it was a huge prophecy, right? The 3 days of darkness. When was the 3 days of darkness supposed to happen? It was supposed to happen and prophesied to be on the solstice, December 21st. Well, the reason why, so this was a miscalculation, if you will, right? This was a miscalculation because the 3 days of darkness never really represented 3 days of darkness. Because just imagine that all of a sudden there was just darkness on this side of the earth and the other side of the earth, right? Meaning, even if the sun is there, technically, if there's 3 days of darkness on one side because we stopped and didn't move anymore, there would be 3 days of light on the other side, right? So in what scenario could there actually be 3 days of darkness all around the planet? Well, the only real scenario that could happen is if we all collectively realize we're in a simulation and the holographic illusion just collapsed and all of a sudden the lights went out. Right? Because if we're still in this 3D reality, we're still in the solar system, one side will have 3 days of light, one side will have 3 days of darkness. Well, why did we say 3 days of darkness? The reason being is because it was talking about the solstice time, the 3 days of the longest nights. It was mistranslated, and a lot of people started believing that it was going to be 3 full days of actual darkness. But in my opinion, you know, and many other people's opinions, it was not the case, because the 3 days of darkness was actually supposed to be the same time of year. So the 3 days of darkness represents, as we're going to get into a second, light conquering the darkness. Because you have the 3 days of darkness, and all of a sudden we have the days getting longer again. The sun looks like it stays in the same angle in the sky, and it's at its lowest ebb in the sky. And all of a sudden, it starts rising again. It starts moving again. It's symbolic representation of light overcoming the darkness, which is why so many light darkness kind of rituals are going on at this time. Even the resurrection of Christ has been categorized with this day, even though it's not technically his birthday. So it represents even deeper the shadow work, the darkness, going within the darkness and doing the shadow work to release. What happens if you go and do the shadow work? Will you eventually emerge into the light? Even the Mayans had a connection to this. Their connection between the Mayan calendar and the winter solstice lies in the alignment of certain Mayan structures with astronomical events, particularly the position of the sun during the solstices. Chichen Itza contains a large pyramid known as El Castillo, or the Temple of Kulkulkan. This pyramid is designed in such a way that during the spring and fall equinoxes, a shadow cast by the sunlight creates an appearance of a serpent descending or ascending the staircase. This is often referred to as the serpent effect or the snake of the sunlight. And here we have just an image of basically you on Earth right there in the middle and what the winter solstice and the summer solstice look like. And of course, some of you guys are on the southern hemisphere, so I need to give you guys a shout out here because it's the complete opposite on the southern hemisphere, right? This winter solstice is the summer solstice for them. And the sun is at the lowest ebb, and you can see that from this graph. During the winter solstice, the northern hemisphere, the Earth's axial tilt results in the sun appearing at its lowest point in the sky at noon. This phenomenon leads to the shortest day and the longest night of year. So that is how we have the longest night. The tilt of the Earth is about 23.5 degrees relative to its orbit around the sun. During the winter solstice, the North Pole is tilted away from the sun to its maximum extent. The winter solstice in the southern hemisphere, as I said, is reversed. The South Pole is tilted towards the sun, resulting in the longest day and the shortest night of the year for locations in the southern hemisphere. In this world of duality, the fact that we have a tilt and the fact that northern hemisphere experiences something completely opposite than the southern hemisphere creates this duality in this world that doesn't allow us to relate to the same types of experiences. It's very interesting how the tilt of the Earth creates the seasons, creates the imbalance in weather, creates the dualistic expression of us having alternative experiences on different hemispheres. And I feel the tilt of the Earth connected to the moon and its connection to Earth and even Saturn creates what they call the Saturn moon matrix that allows for us to be in a specific construct, a specific frequency that creates this third dimensional reality that we're in, that also really amplifies the dualistic experiences that we have on this planet. Ancient cultures viewed the solstice as death and rebirth. It often symbolized by the death and rebirth of the sun. This translated to the sun god of the respective culture, because there's all these sun worshiping religions, faiths, cults, but then there's also ancient pagan cultures and pantheons of gods in which there was a sun god within it. Even though they had multiple gods were different things, they had a sun god as well. In many tribes and civilizations, the gods were the exact same, but with a different name. Here are some sun gods of the solstice. We have Ascleon in Greek, Amaterasu, Japan, Baldur, Norse, Mithras, Roman, Demeter in Greek, Horus in Egypt, also Ra in Egypt, Spider Woman, Hopi. So some of them had multiple sun gods. And it's interesting because Alcyone is also a Pleiadian star. So it's like when some of these ancient civilizations spoke about the sun god, not always did they actually represent their own sun in our solar system. Sometimes they even spoke about the central sun, and the central sun represents the black hole in the center of our galaxy, or the black sun. And even the black sun, which is the black hole in the center of our galaxy, has also been translated to be Saturn as the second black sun instead of actually the black hole. So when you have all, so much variety of expression in human experience, in antiquity, there's been all types of different things that have been mistranslated, or even just civilizations that have worshipped other elements of the cosmos and called it the sun, even though technically it wasn't the sun in our solar system. Here's another map at the top here of the June solstice and the December solstice. So the sun god, the son of God. So here is an equation that I came up with, if you can call it that. The sun god, let's say Ra, Yahweh, Zeus, even though Zeus was technically the god of thunder and lightning, but he was the overall god. The sun god equals the son of God. So my argument is, if you can call it an argument or belief, is that Christianity never stopped being a pagan religion. They chose one of the many, which is what we'll speak about in Judaism. Judaism had that. But the whole aspect of the sun god and then the son of God. And now, if you look at conventional Christianity, they don't think Jesus is the son of God. Jesus is also the son, the God himself, and the son of God at the same time. That's the belief system that stemmed out soon after the Council of Nicaea, which we'll also get into. So, in essence, Yeshua is a personification of the Son, and it was a moving us into the direction of feeling that Yeshua is this separate entity in this new covenant on earth, but it was truly a continuation of sun worshiping religions. Case in point, why do we have the Lord's Day on Sunday? Right? It's the day we worship the sun. But as I'll get to in a bit, Christianity is not really worshiping the sun. They're worshiping Saturn. And we'll get to that later. We'll go deep into that in a bit. So the sun god equals the son of God. The sun stops in the same angle and then moves 3 days later, like I showed you, right? Slowest ebb in the sky, 3 longest nights of the year, resurrection. The sun dies and is reborn. Well, who else died and was reborn? The Son of God dies and is resurrected. So that whole Passover, the whole solstice is a representation of the resurrection of Christ, which is interesting because we put the resurrection of Christ's celebration in Easter, which is in April, even though technically this time of year is more symbolic about the resurrection. And this is all a symbolization of the sun's victory over winter's darkness, or the Son of God's victory over the forces of darkness. Yeshua's victory over the forces of darkness. But they live in perfect balance. The victimization mentality of we are now conquering the sun and we just overcame it is not the way it really is. It's this beautiful balance, and now it's time for the light to emerge because we've done the shadow work. And the shadow work of this time is also connected to actual plant medicine rituals in which ancient people would do the shadow work. All the symbolism that we're referring to here was actually integrated practically through the use of plant medicines to help them go through the shadow work. There's a Christianization theory, and this one I think I subscribe to. I think most people, even conventionally, subscribe to this now. The major purpose of to adopt Christmas was to incorporate a widely used pagan holiday to provide incentive and excitement in those who were being forced to convert to Christianity. Right? So they were obviously converting people by the droves, and in order to make people want to move over, they started utilizing the traditions. The Catholic Church, believe it or not, did not like this holiday. Why? Well, they thought it was pagan. Well, it is. And devout Christians refused to celebrate it. It was mainly celebrated by recently converted pagans. Eventually, Catholicism accepted Christmas. However, the Protestants held out for much longer, and they hated the holiday. This quote from the King James Bible comes way later, one of the most manipulated Bibles in all of Christian history, but obviously comes from something older, just to show you that they really weren't in alignment with these belief systems of paganism, even though that's where the culture came from. Even Jesus and Judaism, again, something we'll get into in a minute, they weren't aware of that. Thus, said the Lord, learn not the way of the heathen, and be not dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the heathen are dismayed at them. The Council of Nicaea has got a lot of publicity, if you will. I'm sure almost all of you guys have heard of it, the Council of Nicaea. Over here, when I first heard about the Council of Nicaea, this is what I used to say for a decade, that 325 AD, they had all these popes and bishops and priests come, and they basically brought all these different gospels together in order to create a consensus on what they would have as the Bible. That's only partially true. So what happened in this thing was there was a debate. This is what the Council of Nicaea was, guys. A lot of you may not have heard this before, because what happened to me around 3 to 4 years ago was I went through all my presentations I've been presenting for like over a decade, and I fact checked myself. All right, I fact checked myself, and I realized, oh man, I didn't have enough information to be speaking on specific topics. One of the things I fact checked was really what happened with the Council of Nicaea. There was a debate over who Christ was. That was the reason for it. Who was Christ? Was he a man who became ascended like the Buddha, right? Buddha connection, Christianity, Hinduism connection to Christianity. That goes deep. And was he an ascended human and enlightened? Was he the actual incarnation of God? How great would it have been if they thought he was a man who became ascended, because then we could take literally the kingdom of heaven is within, right? Instead of taking that as a metaphor, we can literally take that and realize that we all have this potential to do it. But guess what? The Council of Nicaea actually voted in the correct way for this. Yes, they had gospels, they manipulated stuff, that happened too. The belief he was an enlightened human won, guys, that won. But the popular belief in Rome was that he was God incarnated himself. So even though the Council of Nicaea decided to say, okay, he was an ascended enlightened human like the Buddha, the popular belief overturned the Council of Nicaea's belief in it. And then also the conspiracies that are true, a debate over what gospels would be utilized. The Muratorian canon in 200 CE is the earliest compilation of texts resembling the New Testament, around 170 to 80 years or so after the death of Jesus. But it wasn't until the 5th century that all the Christian churches came to a basic agreement on the biblical canon. That's 500 years, 400 to 500 years after the birth of Yeshua, right? Do you think there could have been some manipulation during that time? Was there some control mechanisms going on? Why did Rome end up adopting Christianity and then creating the Roman Catholic Church? And did Rome continue some of their pagan traditions or even inherent beliefs? The Christians in the early stages were so incredibly anti-Christmas, even actually up until more recently, a few hundred years ago. The Puritans in England overthrew King Charles in 1647, guys. That's 1600 years later. Among their first items of business after chopping off the monarch's head was to ban Christmas. Parliament then decreed that December 25th, tomorrow, should instead be a day of fasting and humiliation for Englishmen to account for their sins. Instead of a day of celebration, it should be a day of humiliation and fasting. It's a sin to worship Christmas. New England even banned it at the same time due to the Puritans living there. And here is an image of the notice that they had in New England at that time. Public notice. The observation of Christmas has having been deemed a sacrilege. The exchanging of gifts and greetings, dressing in fine clothing, feasting and similar satanical practices are hereby forbidden, with the offender liable to 5-shilling fine. All right, very interesting. What is even more interesting here is back in the 1600s, if you're doing this sacrilege that is satanical by the way they're looking at it, they're only charging you 5 shillings. I mean, that's much better than being burnt at the stake, right? Christianity hijacks Christmas. Pagan traditions and stories created the foundation of Christmas as we know it. Stories from all over the pagan world began being incorporated into this holy day, such as the origin of mistletoe. So let's get into that story. Why do we have mistletoe as a part of Christmas? Baldur's Norse god mother, Frigga, honored Baldur and asked all of nature to promise not to harm him. Unfortunately, in her haste, Frigga overlooked the mistletoe plant. So Loki, the resident trickster, took advantage of the opportunity and fooled Baldur's blind twin, Hoorah, into killing him with a spear made of mistletoe. Baldur was later restored to life. A resurrection, restored to life. That is how this tradition then got incorporated into Christmas. Now, as we're going into the festivities of this season, we're going to start talking about where all these traditions came from. Why do we have a Christmas tree? Why do we have gift giving? And you can see on the Christmas tree here on the right-hand side, we have the Portal to Ascension logo as the star at the top of the Christmas tree, as it should be. The use and purpose for the Christmas tree dates back to the time of shamans and mystics in pagan Europe, before the conquest of Rome. During the solstice, shamans would collect Amanita muscaria mushrooms on December 21st and leave them to dry on the branches of the Christmas tree. You can see here, in this tree here at the back, we have ornaments as the mushrooms. So the first ever ornaments, before we had all these other things that we put on the trees, were these kind of like an artist representation of mushrooms. So this is what would go down. The solstice, shamans would collect these mushrooms. They would go on December 21st. They would leave them to dry on the branches of the Christmas tree. So the original presents, the original gifts, right? The original ones. Definitely other things happened where we started having gifts for other reasons, but the way it all started was the gifts were the mushrooms, the Amanita muscaria mushrooms. But the mushrooms were wet. They were growing in snow. There was raining during that time. So they needed to leave them to dry. So what they would do is they would pick the mushrooms and they would hang them upside down, or actually right way up maybe. They would hang them on the Christmas tree, like you see behind here, to dry for 3 to 4 days until December 25th, Christmas Day. The reason why they would do that is they needed to dry them out in order to be able to put them in this sack and then go and deliver the gifts to the community. This mushroom, Amanita muscaria, is toxic, but they become less lethal when they're dried out and fermented. Conveniently, they grow most commonly under pine trees. Their spores travel exclusively on pine seeds, so the shamans would often hang them on the lower branches of the pine they were growing to dry out before taking them back to the village. Now, symbolism upon symbolism upon symbolism here. So we're going to call these out as we go. What is a symbol for the third eye? let's do a little more interaction here, shall we? What is a symbol for the third eye? And what do they say that the third eye actually looks like if you were able to do a cross intersection of the brain? Let's see if anybody in the chat knows this. And a little hint, I actually just mentioned it in there. Interesting. David says Saint Nicholas was at the Council of Nicaea. Pinecone, pinecone, pinecone. All right, you guys are definitely Portal to Ascension people because you guys know these answers. Okay, this is good. Exactly. So, what happens with Amanita muscaria mushrooms? It releases DMT into where? Your third eye, the pineal gland. Where does the Amanita muscaria mushroom grow? Naturally under pine trees. How does the Amanita muscaria mushroom spores get move around? On the spores of pines, right? So here, this is just the beginning of the symbolism. Let's go deeper, okay? Yes, fly agaric, exactly, John. So they'll leave them on these branches to dry before taking them back to the village. And now here we go. Exactly what you guys are speaking about. The pine cone and the pineal gland. The pineal gland is a small pine cone-shaped gland located in the brain near the center. It produces melatonin, a hormone that regulates sleep, wake cycles, and plays a role in various biological functions. Melatonin is the precursor to DMT. Ancient cultures, it often represented enlightenment, spiritual awakening, and the pineal gland's role in the human experience. In ancient Egypt, the pine cone was associated with the pineal gland and symbolized spiritual awakening. Even the staff of Osiris, an Egyptian god, was often depicted with the pine cone at its top. Even in Vatican City, now we're talking about pagan connection to Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church, there's a large bronze pine cone sculpture known as the Pigna located in the courtyard, symbolizing, honestly, the control of the pine cone and the all-seeing eye. And that's not enough. Go to Disneyland. Not only will you see this mushroom everywhere, right? Like on top of the churro vendors, you'll see like a mushroom like this. Not only will you see that, but all over the place, you'll see hundreds of pine cones. And you'll even see walkways where in the center, there's this huge staff with the pine cone on top of it, which Disney, by the way, is 100% riddled with psychedelic information, awareness, and symbolism. And that is because Walt Disney was a huge, not only was he a drug, actually did a lot of drugs, like he did a lot of cocaine, but he was also into psychedelics. And there's a book called Charles Hayes called Tripping by Charles Hayes. Charles Hayes was Walt Disney's roommate in college, and he will tell you a lot of stuff about Walt Disney in that book. But even they have all this symbolism there. So have you ever thought that maybe that the Christmas tree is actually a representation of the tree of life and the Christ consciousness? The Christmas tree, in essence, represents a connection from the root, which is the roots in the ground, all the way to the crown chakra. It's actually a system of chakra activations. The Amanita muscaria mushroom. You ingest this mushroom. It releases DMT into your third eye. It creates an experience where you end up going and doing the shadow work during the 3 days of darkness, during the solstice. You go within, you reflect. Your chakras activate from the root of the Christmas tree, and then eventually, what is on the top of the Christmas tree? Some people put fairies there. Other people put stars there. What does the Christmas tree represent? It's a journey of the tree of life through the chakra system from the roots after ingesting the Amanita muscaria mushroom to be completely activated and enlightened when your crown chakra activates with the star on top of the tree. It's a literal representation of a full chakra activation. Now, here's another layer of symbolism. Mushrooms in general, whether they're psilocybin mushrooms, Amanita muscaria mushrooms, This is, unless you're in this world of plant medicine, maybe you're unaware of this, but they're actually called the Christ consciousness plant medicine or fungi. The reason being is, if you were to do a cross intersection of Earth, and you were just to cut it in half, and you would look under Earth, there will be this neural network, kind of like these trees right here, that looks like the nervous system of the planet. And what are they? It's fungi, it's mushrooms, it's these spores and this mycelium network of fungi connecting the entire earth and communicating with each other. Even tree roots are covered in this, and the mycelium network of the fungi are literally assisting in the communication of other plant life to other plant life. The mushrooms and the fungi is literally the nervous system of the planet. Well, this planet represents the Christ consciousness. So the mycelium is connected to the consciousness of the planet, the Christ consciousness of the planet. So technically, when you're ingesting the mushroom, you're ingesting an experience of the Christ consciousness, which is the experience of the planet you're within. Which is why a lot of times when people do mushrooms, they have feel a deeper connection to the planet. They see that everything is alive. Things look like they're breathing. So all those are connections and was utilized back in the ancient times. Here's another one here, which is the Christmas tree leading all the way from the root chakra all the way to the portal to ascension logo, which is the crown chakra. While the mushrooms would hang dry on these trees, these are the ornaments, okay? Some deer would consume some of these mushrooms, and they would get very high of the fungi that they would urinate themselves. They would get so high that they could not control their faculties, and they would pee themselves. So I shared earlier that this is a very toxic mushroom. The best way to consume it is dried out and fermented. So what happens when the mushroom has been ingested into the gut of a reindeer? It ferments. It ferments, and then the reindeer would pee. The shaman and other members of the tribe would drink the snow with the deer's urine. This will give them the effects of the mushroom without the toxicity. And this is actually believed to be the origin of the phrase getting pissed. I don't know if any of you guys have spent time in Europe or in England, but getting pissed means getting drunk. And this term is utilized right now in the same area as where the ancient shamans were doing these things. And the origin of the phrase getting pissed started from the reindeer basically peeing and then people drinking the pee in order to get the effects of the fungi. So Rudolph, right? Let's talk about Rudolph. Why is his nose red? Well, he's eating the Amanita muscaria mushroom. Even Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, his nose is a symbolization of him eating the mushroom. And then we have, of course, flying reindeer. Well, you got shamans with pointy hats, with sacks, with mushrooms in it, gifts, right? Sounds very familiar, like Santa Claus, right? Going around the community, giving this to people. We have reindeer that are high off the fungi. We now have the stories of flying reindeer. Plus, there was this connection, Santa Claus connection, shaman, pointy wizard hat like a Merlin, sack of mushrooms, gifts, go into the community, reindeer. How does the shaman transport himself to the communities? With reindeer. So the shamans would fly to the communities and give out these gifts. Which is the perfect segue for who is this guy? Who is Santa? The original Santa, like I just expressed, was the shaman that collected mushrooms with his pointed wizard hat. Mushrooms were the ornaments and gifts spread to the village, and reindeers were the ways of transporting them. The original Santa was commonly depicted as more of a gnome-like little man, often skinny and a little scary. The nice, happy-go-lucky Santa wasn't until around the last 150 years or so, but more like 100 years. But before that, he was like a gnome, like he was on a mission. This guy was getting these psychedelics, and he was trying to go to the communities and give this so they can do the real work. Now, there's been a lot of individuals, gods, deities, all types of things that have contributed towards Santa. So we're going to spend some time here looking at the pieces of what created this individual as we now know it. One would be Krampus. Krampus was the son of Hel, the Norse god of the underworld. With the spread of Christianity, Krampus became associated with Christmas, despite efforts by the Catholic Church to ban his existence. He is from Central European folklore, particularly in the Alpine regions. He is often depicted as a horned, anthropomorphic creature, contrasting with the benevolent figure of the Saint Nicholas. In traditional folklore, Krampus is said to accompany Saint Nicholas during the Christmas season. While Saint Nicholas rewards the well-behaved children, Krampus is believed to punish naughty or misbehaved children. So we have two aspects of the same individual here. We have the light side, we have the dark side. We have the duality of these two individuals, Saint Nicholas and Krampus, coming together, one being the good cop, one being the bad cop, so to speak. And this is also very interesting because this is also a symbol of the light versus darkness, which is a huge theme of this time of year. Who here has seen the Smurfs? Go ahead and leave a comment in the chat if you've seen the Smurfs, and then let's talk about this a little bit here. What does this look like to you? Okay, let's see. I'm going to stop the screen share here. I like to stop the share just so that I can see you guys talking. So what did you guys see the picture of the Smurfs? What is something that you saw there? What are a couple of things that you saw there? There was two things. Yes, Ria says it, mushrooms. And what was the other thing? And I'll give you a clue. It's what the Smurfs were dressed as. Why are the Smurfs blue? That's a good question in itself. We can get into speaking about even the Hindu gods being blue, right? So the Smurfs is another children's thing like Disney that is completely riddled with adult themes. The Smurfs are in what? They're in mushroom huts. What do the Smurfs look like? These are the gnomes. These are the shamans. The Smurfs are literally the depiction of the shamans. And they are wearing these hats, these pointed hats, and they're going around happy because they're just high on these mushrooms. This whole entire story is about that. Now, the color blue is also an interesting one because I don't know if you guys have heard this, but blue wasn't utilized until later in traditions. Egypt and India were some of the first two ancient cultures that were utilizing it. And it's a very symbolic and spiritual color. And also Shiva being blue, the way Shiva became blue. Shiva is the god of the third eye, the chakra system. Shiva is the number one yogi, the original yogi. The story of Shiva being blue is that he drank a poison that created a reaction in his third eye that released the DMT, and his whole throat turned blue from the DMT, and then his whole body turned blue as well. So we can only speculate really when it comes to the Smurfs, but this is just riddled with symbolism upon symbolism about the stories that we've been discussing here. Let's take a little detour here and now talk about elemental beings. According to Paracelsus and his subsequent followers, there are four categories of elementals, which are gnomes, undines, sylphs, and salamanders. These correspond to the four Empedoclean elements of antiquity: earth, water, air, fire, all respectively. Their concept of the elementals draws from several much older traditions in mythology and religion. Common threads can be found in folklore, animism, and anthropomorphism. So just in case any of you don't know what elementals are, the whole theory is that there was once a time where very advanced spiritual animals that we could connect to and other beings like gnomes, fairies, pixies, were all in existence on Earth with humanity. Humanity and these beings vibrated at different frequencies. This is very similar to the Lord of the Rings story, that they ended up moving apart from each other, living in different worlds. And then eventually, the frequencies were so drastic and different that as humanity fell from grace, these beings did not. And then they phased out into another reality, right? And so at one point in history, we coexisted. And then we phased into two different realities. And supposedly what's happening now as we're ascending is we're going to get into we're moving eventually into a reality where we'll coexist with these beings again. This is the world of unicorns, really, right? And so what does this have to do with the Santa story? Well, Santa was a symbolization of the gnome, which is an elemental being. When you eat the Amanita muscaria mushroom and you tap into the consciousness of Earth or the Christ consciousness frequency, you then tap into a world where you're able to perceive reality more like it is and shift your perception and visions into other realities. So a lot of times, the people that would be on these psychedelics would have visions of elementals, including the story of the gnome being interchanged with the story of Santa. So what I'm getting at here is how we're seeing this gnome-like kind of elemental energy, fairies, Smurf kingdom, and like with these fantastical animals infusing with the ancient pagan rituals. The elemental beings, the term elemental being is something new. I think it's only the last 100 years. But these beings, have been spoke about for thousands of years. And nowadays, they're spoken extensively in channeling information. And basically, beings that are tapped in the conscious and live in harmony with the earth. It is said that they shifted into a different dimension or dimension between dimensions to escape from human violence and prejudice. They left Middle Earth. Many who ingest this mushroom seem to feel a deep connection to the earth. Elemental beings are sentient creatures that are from Earth we may have once coexisted with. This is again the crossover between the shaman, the gnome. The gnome is the bringer and the keeper of earthly wisdom and higher consciousness, also connected to Santa. He's going and cutting down these mushrooms, letting them dry, getting them fermented, going and delivering earthly wisdom and higher consciousness to the community. The gnome is the shaman, and the shaman is the gnome. And here is a real life picture of me and my family. Just thought because it's Christmas, I should throw in a picture of my family members here. And this is when this was taken thousands of years ago. And it was the time when the elves had left. So even in the Lord of the Rings, you have all these things I just spoke about. If you guys remember, I'm sure most of you have seen this. Where did the elves live? The elves live, you go through a mist, like almost like the mist of Avalon. You go through this mist, through this ocean, and then these beautiful gates open, and you go through this portal where you then go into another world that's a phased out reality where beautiful elemental beings and everybody's in harmony with nature exist. But if you remember, the elves used to live with the humans. The gnomes used to live with the humans. There was a time where the dwarves right there, with the dwarf in the corner, the hobbits, everybody lived in harmony. But now they're all in their respective areas. And the elves maintained a level of consciousness where they wanted to live in peace, and they phased out of a different reality on the same earth, right? This is all these stories of the ancient times basically taking part in this. And then, of course, we have Gandalf, the shaman. Now, after that detour, let's get back to Santa. The root of Santa's bags of gifts, sleigh, reindeer, midnight flight, chimney-based means of entry into the home, and even the way we decorate our houses at Christmas derive from ancestral traditions of a number of Arctic dwellers. Connected to the god and planet Saturn, the Roman god Saturnalia, on the night of the winter solstice, the shaman would gather several hallucinogenic mushrooms and then launch himself into a spiritual journey up the tree of life. Take these mushrooms, give it to the community, and they would launch themselves like they're on flying reindeer up the Christmas tree to the star at the top. Even Santa's outfit is designed like an Amanita muscaria mushroom. He has the black boots, which represent the trunk and the roots of the mushroom. He has the red outfit, which represents the base of the mushroom. He has the white fixings at the ends of his outfit, which represent the dots on the mushroom. Saturnalia, which is connected to Santa, because this time of year, so these are the revelations we're getting into now that I shared out in the beginning. Santa, Saturnalia, the sun worshipping, all connected. How does the Saturn and sun worshipping go hand in hand? Santa and the Saturnalia, a holiday in honor of Saturn. Beginning in the week leading up to the winter solstice, Saturnalia was a hedonistic time when food and drink were plentiful and the normal Roman social order was turned upside down. Romans also observed Juvenalia at this time, a feast honoring the children of Rome. In addition, members of the upper classes often celebrated the birthday of Mithra, the sun god Mithra, the unconquerable sun. On December 25th, it was believed that Mithra, an infant god, was born of a rock. So we got Saturnalia, we got Mithra worshipping. So you're seeing like these Roman pagan traditions that come back from even further was really the foundation of Saturn and sun worshipping becoming hand in hand. Saturnalia was such a time of hedonism. And do I have more information on that here? Yes, I do. We'll get into that in a second. So now we're going to go into Santa Claustrum. There's this part of the brain called the claustrum, which is a thin, irregular, sheet-like neuronal structure hidden beneath the inner surface of the neocortex. Its function is enigmatic. Its anatomy is quite remarkable. It receives inputs from almost all regions of your cortex and projects back to almost all regions. We here briefly summarize what is known about the claustrum, speculate on its possible relationship to the process that gives rise to integrated conscious precepts. So basically, it's the part of our brain that creates this oil that then creates this type of communication with our consciousness and other parts of our brain. And this next video is going to explain it a little deeper after this slide. So it's the precursor to the spinal fluid that travels down the chakra system. So the way our brain works is that we form this fluid in our brains that then go down a spinal system into our chakra points. This creates an energy and electrical current that fuels all of our organs and creates a battery and a communication between our brains and all of our organs and our spine. This is also known as the Christ oil, the cerebral spinal fluid. And the Greeks called this Christos, this oil, which is interesting because there's also a person called Christos in ancient Greece that has a similar story to Yeshua. The fluid goes up and down the spine and the neocortex, which has been related as a symbol of Santa Claus going up and down the chimney. So the fact that this claustrum, Santa Claus, goes up and down the spine is a symbolization of Santa going up and down the chimney. We have Amanita muscaria mushrooms. We have the tree. We have Santa with the bag of mushrooms. We have Santa going and flying on his reindeer onto the roof of a chimney. He goes down with the psychedelic mushrooms to deliver the gifts under the tree at the person's house, which is then a representation of the chakra system and the claustrum oil going up and down the spine. I'm going to play this video and I'll be right back after this video.
Claustrum. Santa Claus. Neurons inside the claustrum branch out and extend around the entire circumference of the brain, much like a crown of thorns. A group of researchers from George Washington University found that the claustrum can act like an on-off switch for consciousness. In Latin, the claustrum is known as Claustrum haematolicurosum. Claustrum means barrier, hema means blood, and liquor means spirit. Therefore, Claustrum haematolicurosum means blood to spirit barrier, which is exactly true, since the claustrum is a barrier between blood and cerebrospinal fluid. CSF is a filtrate of blood. Dr. Carey says, it is from the claustrum that the wonderful Christ oil is formed. In plain modern terms, the light, acting on the substances of the brain, forms cerebrospinal fluid, or Christ oil. 3. Cerebrospinal fluid. CSF is a filtrate of blood. In fact, there is a perpetual exchange occurring between blood, CSF, nerve or interstitial fluid, sexual vital fluids, and lymph. At the claustrum blood CSF barrier, the body turns water into wine every second. Water symbolizes blood, and wine symbolizes CSF, spiritualized substance. CSF has a significant charge. It is saline, salty with minerals, and alkaline, meaning electron-rich. CSF is secretly known as the blood of the lamb. The ventricles are even shaped like ram horns, hence the esoteric affiliation with Aries. CSF is the most electrically conductive fluid in the body.
It fuels all the organs.
The breath charges CSF. The great regeneration relies on the charging and transmuting of this subtle fluid. The Kundalini utilizes that which is termed spinal fluid. It actually ionizes CSF and changes its molecular structure and consequently the basic DNA structure of the entire body. Dr. Zapatera says, CSF acts like a storage field and conveyor for light energies.
Symbolism upon symbolism. So back to Saturnalia. When the god Saturn, so the whole concept of Saturnalia, the worship of Saturn at this time, was about when the god Saturn ruled Italy and there was complete equality and no slavery, which never happened. Okay, maybe happened around the world, maybe it's talking about Atlantis, maybe something around those on that level, but in Italy, specifically in Italy, the god Saturn ruling in complete equality, this was from an ancient story, further ancient than Rome. At this time, the slaves became the masters for the festival, providing them with a day to blow off steam. It was used to reinforce slavery rather than focusing quality that the day should represent. It's very interesting because this is also something that I've noticed early in my awakening was that, you know, we have these days of the year that we're given off. People are working 9 to 5. They're struggling. They're trying to work for ends meet. A lot of people are doing jobs they don't enjoy, right? Not everyone, but a lot of people are. And then right when you are getting kind of sick and tired of it all, you got a 3-day weekend. You have a few days off here and there. And what it does is it actually helps you reinforce the system rather than give you an actual physical break from it. Because just by blowing off some steam, you're then able to come back and be a good follower, a worshiping part of the matrix. So this day was a day where the slaves were able to become the masters. The masters would crawl on the floor in a hedonistic way, get abused, and they would love it. It was like they enjoyed it. They switched the roles, and it was representing equality but balancing the act. But it only just allowed the slaves to blow off steam so that they can just get back to being productive obedient slaves that their masters wanted them to be. December 25th was considered to be the birthday of the Roman sun god Sol Invictus and a celebration of Kronos, the god of Saturn, also known as the god of time and the lord of the Titans. At this time, the sun is at its lowest ebb. And you can see here, I showed this image earlier. That's where the winter solstice, right here at the bottom. And that's what it means by the lowest ebb. So the sun technically looks like it's closer to Earth, closer to the Earth's surface. So now, here is the Santa equation that took me years to kind of figure out and put together. So Santa Claus equals Father Christmas. Father Christmas equals Father Time. Father Time equals Kronos, who is the father of time. The father of time is god of Saturn, Kronos. So we have the sun god and Saturn working together at this holiday season. So let's just break that down again a little bit more, okay? Santa Claus, we call him Father Christmas, right? Father Christmas, the father of time. Why is Santa the father of time? Well, Santa and Satan and Saturn doesn't just sound similar just for the sake of it. There's a reason why it sounds very similar. It has the same root. Tell me something. What is something that Santa does that shows he's the master of time? Okay, riddle me this. What is something that Santa does that shows he's the master of time? Let's see if somebody can answer this one. What is it that something Santa does that shows his mastery over time? I'll give it 1 minute before I answer. Aha! Okay. Oh, you guys know it. Okay, cool. Yes. Beautiful. All right, I'm gonna throw all these up here just to show that you guys. Exactly. Who else can literally stop time so that he can go and visit all the children in the village to deliver psychedelic mushrooms in one night? He is Santa Claus, the god of Saturn. Only the god of Saturn has mastery over time. Then we have, of course, the Christian Santa. So now getting into how this person, this being, started morphing into what we know as Santa Claus today. Saint Nicholas, a Turkish cardinal in the 14th century who was known for his kindness to children. The Christians began adopting the holiday around this time. All other elements of Santa, including the pants, the hat, the bag, and more, all originated from pagan shamanic stories. And then back to the equation. Santa, Saturn, Satan. Okay. Disclaimer here. I'm not saying that this is evil, good, bad. I don't think any of these celestial bodies are one way or the other. I think we create that, and each one of them has a shadow aspect of itself. We forgot why we came to this planet. We have amnesia. And as the amnesia took hold of us, we started looking at these mechanisms, if you will, like the really advanced technology of Saturn, as a thing that is holding us into this frequency and this vibration. And because we have an amnesia and because we aren't completely aware of why this happened to us, because we forgot, we start looking at it as satanic, Luciferian, evil. We start personifying, or we'll start giving these traits towards it without a bigger understanding of what these aspects represent. Like we spoke earlier, Saturn's return, a huge reflection in your life, going through the shadow work. Who really am I in this reality? Also, the construct of the matrix. Saturn, Kronos, the god of time, we exist within this linear world where we're progressing forward linearly, even though on a bigger scale it's secular, and beyond that, time doesn't even exist. Saturn has a huge connection to our linear progression within this reality of us having experiences and progressing forward. Not only are we progressing forward, but it also gives us the opportunity to change, transform. So all of these elements that we want to have being here, because if there was no linearity and progression forward in this way, everything would just coexist at once, and our physical experience on Earth would no longer exist. In the book of Exodus, now we're going to get into now, here's the revelation information. We're getting into now how Saturn and the Sun are connected and what really happened during this time of year, and how maybe we're not worshiping the Sun, but we're actually worshiping Saturn. The book of Exodus, the Old Testament, and the first commandment, Exodus 20:30 says, "You shall have no other God before me." That's very interesting. Yahweh, or Elohim, said, "You shall have no other God before me." Some people translate this as to, oh, idol worshiping your money, worshiping your bank account, worshiping food, or whatever you want to call it, having a worship of a god that you give you power to besides Yahweh. But no, this actually was Yahweh saying, do not worship those other gods. I am the only God, and you will only worship me. So why would a monotheistic religion, the God from the monotheistic religion, tell all of their followers to no longer worship the other gods and just me if there's only one God? And the question is, why did the god of Saturn become the sun god? We'll speak about this some more, but let me get into a tiny bit right now. 700, let's go back in time, around 2,700 years. 700 BCE, the Israelites, the ancient Judaic people, they had multiple gods. They had Anshar, they had Yahweh. There was multiple gods. It was a polytheistic religion. It wasn't even called Judaism at that point, but these Israelites, so to speak, they were pagan. And then all of a sudden, there was one of the gods that said to all the people, "You shall have no other God before me." Who was this God? This God was Yahweh. Who was this God also known as? This God was known as Elohim. Who was Elohim before he was the all-powering God? What planet did Elohim represent? What planet did Elohim represent? The god El. Elohim was the god of Saturn until 700 BCE, when all of a sudden Elohim, Yahweh, said, "Don't worship any god but me." And then all of a sudden, the god of Saturn, the ruler of time, said to all the other people that were following him that I am now your God, and became positioned as the sun god. The god of Saturn became the sun god. The god of Satan became the sun god. The text from that point onwards was a worshiping of Satan under the guise of the sun god. Okay, that's a really oversimplifying it here, because I'm not saying anything's good or bad. But it could be argued that the God of the Bible is actually seems to be the devil, and vice versa, just because of the way the way it was constructed and the kind of things that God was doing to humanity. It was the God of Saturn creating the shadow work. It wasn't an evil person; it was the shadow work took over. And Yahweh, the archetypal Yahweh, basically said, "You will worship me. I am now your sun god, but I'm only really the god of Saturn." Now, there's two things that the Saturn and the Sun have in common. Also shared this with Alan in the beginning. Why was it so easy for us to mistake the god of Saturn as the sun god? Why? What other celestial body dictates linearity and time in our solar system. The sun. The sun god and Saturn both have a say in our perception of linearity within our galaxy, in our solar system. So it was a kind of an easy bait and switch for us to think that the Saturn god was actually the sun god, which is also why in Judaism, why is the Sabbath on Saturday? Why is the Sabbath on Saturday? Well, Saturday is Saturn Day. They were worshiping Saturn because Yahweh was always the god of Saturn. And then when we had Christianity come about, the covenant was this. Yeshua was trying to correct the record. Worship the sun, the sun that you rotate around. That is the deity, that is the God. Worship the sun. And then Saturnalia came about. Pagan holidays came about. A hijacking occurred. And Saturn, Satan, was maintained as the deity, but the date was changed to Sunday, the worship of the sun, as a bait and switch to make us follow and worship the sun, think that we're doing that when actually we were worshiping Saturn. This is a thought in progress. This came to me only like last week. One of the first illustrations of Santa Claus, okay, getting into the modern Santa now that we went deep down the Saturn rabbit hole, one of the first illustrations of Santa Claus was in 1862 when American Civil War cartoonist Thomas Nast drew an elf supporting Union soldiers at Christmas. This image will serve as the image for Coca-Cola. So 1862 is when we start seeing what we currently know as the modern Santa. In 1930, artist Fred Mitzen painted a Santa drinking a bottle of Coca-Cola in a department store. In 1931, Coca-Cola commissioned illustrator Haddon Sundblom painted Santa for Christmas advertisements. Those paintings established Santa as a warm, happy character with human features, including rosy cheeks, chubby, happy, white beard, twinkly-eyed laughter lines. Before 1931, he was considered a gnome. The transformation to the current Santa was a product of the Swedish artist Haddon Sundblom, who, commissioned by the company, changed the traditional and more pious image of Christian folklore to the Santa Claus of today. And that is deep dive into Santa Claus. So we're going to get into New Year's Day in just a second here. So I'm going to take a pause. Let's go ahead and look at the chats. I'm going to see what you guys are saying, what kind of comments that you have. John says, Yahweh was Enlil. Enlil, the Lord of the sky, and Enki, the Lord of the earth. All right, here we go. Verda Luz. All right, yes. Lucifer, the light bringer, the planet Venus rising before the sun. Yeshua says, I am the bright and morning star. Jesus and Lucifer are one archetype, the caduceus, the soul incarnating and the spirit ascending, returning. Yes, yes. And Verda Luz also says, Saturn and Satan, last planet we can see with our naked eye, farthest from the sun, Lord of darkness. Mm-hmm. All right, so now let's get into New Year's. We've done the deep dive on Christmas and the traditions here. Feel like we did a good job paying reverence to some of the ancient past there. And now let's get into New Year's Day / Eve. This person here, Theodore H. Gastor, in his book New Year's, said, there is scarcely a people, ancient or modern, savage or civilized, which has not observed it. In one form or another, yet no other festival has been celebrated on so many different dates or in so many seemingly different ways. So interesting. Time has a huge component in all that we're discussing here. Even New Year's, we're literally symbolizing a full circle around our sun, which is also a deep symbolization of us. I don't know if you can say worshiping linearity, but definitely being aware of the linear aspect of our existence. The Julian calendar. Christmas has been closely connected to New Year's Day since the days of Julius Caesar. The original date for New Year's was March 25th. We can partly thank the Roman king Numpa Pompeius. During his reign, 715 to 673 BCE, Numa revised the Roman Republican calendar so that January replaced March as the first month, but it was not widely accepted or implemented. So around 715 BCE is when we start seeing a shift towards January. But it took years, like actually almost 2,000 years before it was even widely accepted even more. Since January was named after Janus, the Roman god of all beginnings, March celebrated Mars, the god of war. There's evidence that January 1st was not made the official start of the Roman year until 153 BCE. In 46 BCE, Julius Caesar introduced more changes, though the Julian calendar, as it became known, retained January 1st as the year's opening date. With the expansion of the Roman Empire, the use of the Julian calendar also spread. After the fall of Rome in the 5th century CE, many Christian countries altered the calendar so it would be more reflective of their religion, and March 25th became the common New Year's Day. So we had it shifted in 700 BCE, also in alignment with the fall from the Dwapara Yuga into the Kali Yuga, if you're aware of Yuga cycles. Also in alignment with the ancient Israelites, well, they weren't even Israelites back then, but Abrahamic religion, Abrahamic people, shifting from a polytheistic to a monotheistic pantheon. Also, the same time as Yahweh saying, you'll choose one God over me, right? During this time, we see that shift. Then we have Julius Caesar also implementing it on the 1st. And then when the fall of the Roman Empire happened, all these cultures went back to March 25th in the 5th century because they weren't in alignment with it. They wanted to keep their original date. And March 25th, known as the Feast of Annunciation, became the common New Year's Day in the 5th century. Christians would predominantly still celebrate. So from 500 to 1582, over 1,000 years, Christian world pretty much celebrated March 25th still. The Feast of Annunciation on March 25th is also known as the Solemnity of the Annunciation, a Christian celebration that commemorates the angel Gabriel's announcement to the Virgin Mary that she would conceive and become mother of Jesus, the Son of God. According to Christian tradition, this event took place when Mary was visited by the angel while she was living in Nazareth. The Julian calendar, though, required additional changes when it came about, because there was a miscalculation with leap years. The effect of this error over centuries caused various events to take place in the wrong season. So Pope Gregory the 13th introduced a revised calendar in 1582, and now we have the Gregorian calendar. So the Julian calendar was the premise of it, had some issues, wasn't considering leap years correctly. And in 1582, we have the Gregorian calendar because of Pope Gregory that made additions and shifts to the Julian calendar. In addition to solving the issue with leap years, the Gregorian calendar restored January 1st as the start of the new year. While Italy, France, and Spain immediately accepted the new calendar, Protestant and Orthodox nations were slow to adopt it, creating a divergence between two sects on what days they can celebrate certain traditions. So there's been a few divergent with Protestants and Orthodox, but one of the main ones would be in the 1500s, because they're adopting of different calendars, thereby had them celebrating traditions on different days and different times, kind of creating offshoots of the same original religion. Most of you probably know Christianity, one of the number one religions in the world with the most sects involved in it, different types of ways of belief, traditions, and elements like that. And this was a huge part of creating that split. Great Britain and its American colonies did not even begin following the Gregorian calendar until 1752. So in the US and England, they still celebrated until 1752, March 25th as New Year's Day. This day has been celebrated for so long, right? I mean, it's a symbolization or a rotation around the sun. The sun gives us life. Mesopotamia, we see in 2000 BCE, around the time of the vernal equinox, which occurred around March 25th. The calendar at the time was based on the seasons and the planting season beginning in March. This also eventually shifted to December and was celebrated with a 12-day festival called Zagmuk, which translated to beginning of the year in ancient Mesopotamia. This time of year in ancient Mesopotamia and Babylon celebrates the triumph of Marduk, the patron deity of Babylon, over the forces of chaos, symbolized in later times by Tiamat. This goes into what we were sharing earlier, the symbolization of light overcoming the winter's darkness, or the forces of light overcoming the forces of darkness. And even as ancient as these stories here, we have Marduk overcoming the forces of chaos. We have Babylonian Akitu, which is following the first new moon in March. The Babylonians of Mesopotamia honor the rebirth of the natural world with these festivals. We have Janus in ancient Rome. Years of tampering with the solar calendar eventually established it on January 1st. The god of change and beginnings. Janus was seen as the symbolically looking back at the old and ahead to the new. And this became tied to transition from one year to the next. It was common for friends and neighbors to exchange well wishes and gifts in these days. Most Romans also chose to work for at least part of New Year's Day because idleness was seen as a bad omen for the rest of the year. And I put it here in the bottom, we are living in the second Rome. It's so interesting how much we are connected to Rome, right? I mean, so much of this world, and even the way our streets are and the roads, bridges are created, came out of Rome. Disclaimer alert, that this actually was Pythagoras' information that was hijacked by the elite of Rome, because Pythagoras was living in Italy right at the foundation of the Roman Republic a few hundred years after his death. And his information was taken, hijacked, and then utilized to build the Roman Empire, and then create and conquer and build infrastructure basically around the Roman world. And then this continued until now. Something that I'm really interested in is Roman history. I've been Roman in like 10 past lives. I've seen lives of myself as a Roman warrior. And it's just, I have this deep connection to it. So much so that if there is any Roman movie or show that comes out, even if it's like terrible, like Z-rated, I'll still watch it. The reason why is I'm so addicted to Roman information and history. Whenever there's something new, I just like swallow it up. I got to watch it. And it's because of my deep connection to it. I would love to do a whole conference on Rome, on Portal to Ascension, but I'm not sure if you guys want that, you know, because when we do events here in Portal to Ascension, we go back 10, 20, 30, 100,000 years, right? Rome is only a couple thousand years ago, but really to decipher why we do a lot of the things that we do, including the way our calendar is structured, you need to go back to Rome. And so I would love to one day hopefully do like a 2-day conference on the last 2,000 years ever since the inception of Rome, and what kind of effect it had now. And if you guys are interested in that, let me know and we'll put it together. But I'm always going pre-history, you know. Haven't really done anything recent history, except of course UFO history, how it connects to Nazis, all that stuff in the last 100 years. But we are living in the second Rome. This is a continuation, even the way our governments are structured, even the way the Senate is structured, right? So the question is, are we destined to collapse like the Roman Empire did? Are we living out the same ways and elements that basically brought down the Roman Republic in modern society? And that's a whole conversation for another presentation. Ancient Egypt. In Egypt, there was a New Year's Day that actually represented the connection to the star Sirius. When Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, first became visible after a 70-day absence, usually in mid-July. Wepet Renmet means opening of the new year. The new year was seen as a time of rebirth and rejuvenation. See that a lot, rebirth, resurrection. Discoveries at the Temple of Mut showed that the first month of the year played a host of the Festival of Drunkenness. This was tied to the myth of Sekhmet, a war goddess who had planned to kill all of humanity until the sun god Ra tricked her into drinking herself unconscious. So we see here the time of death and rebirth and the resurrection element. And this is interesting because even the psychedelic mushroom is that representation, right? You are pretty much, just to, for lack of a better way of explaining it, you're basically poisoning yourself in order to create a near-death experience that either gives you a rebirthing experience or death and rebirth, and it's an ego death. It's transcending. It's also killing off the last year of all the baggage that you collected so that you can resurrect into the light. It's also going through the darkness so you can be the light and your own light being victorious over your own darkness. So the symbolization of the actual rebirth and resurrection was actually played out in the usage of actual rituals that was about them being reborn. The question is, what does the sun got to do with it? We can track sun worship ritual for thousands of years. We have Christmas, we have solstice celebrations, we have New Year's Day, we have sun worshiping days or Saturn worshiping days. I'm not going to go into that again, but we already kind of dived deep into that. It seems like that this was Saturn worshiping religions, right? I'm not giving anything the polarity here. Saturn worshiping religions under the guise of the sun god, and then the Saturn god being given the role of the sun god as the all-seeing god, almost like taking the throne of the sun god. The sun god became the son of God. We see in many ancient civilizations a movement to pick one god, and in most cases it was the sun god or god of Saturn. Even though there was sun worship, and that may have been the main god of the culture, humans have worshipped different gods at different times. They would rise and fall. When we went into monotheism from the polytheistic past, we ended up choosing one god, right? Many times it was the sun god, many times it was Saturn, many times it was Saturn that was given the role of the sun god. But if you look in the ancient past before that, we have the Egyptian gods, we have the Greek gods, we have the Indian gods. There was a sun god, but there was also a god of Venus, a god of this and that, right? Gods would rise and fall. Even Thoth, the connection to the moon. So there were different cults at different times in these ancient traditions, and they will be used depending on what zodiac we were in, what was needed at the time, what was happening in the environment and the socio-economical structure of the civilization. They would shift from different deities. I would say that we worship the sun more now than ever, and most people on the planet are blind to this fact. We're thinking it's a god, deity. Yes, the sun gives us power and energy, and we should pay reverence to it. But the worshiping of the lack mentality that we've fallen into, giving up our power, that's what it's been. But what a complete manipulation it is when we give up our power to this Saturn construct, when we think that we're worshiping something else. In itself, we shouldn't be worshiping at all. We should be paying reverence, giving thanks, and receiving energy from. This is a manipulation. The celebration of New Year's is never once commanded in the Bible, right? This whole sun worshiping thing isn't even asked of us. Jesus and the apostles never even observed it. Moses forbade the New Year's celebration. And I'm just giving you facts. I'm not telling you what I believe, but let's just ponder on this for a second. The question is our worshiping from that lack without the reverence mentality of these days, right? Solstice days, gods, New Year's Day, is that allowing us to subconsciously accept linearity as the construct and the foundation of our existence, taking us away from a bigger truth of how time works. Okay, let me say that again. Could our worshiping with lack of intention, lack of reverence, but more of a lack mentality of the sun and these days and these gods, making us adopt and accept linearity as the foundation of this reality rather than opening us up to a bigger truth of how time works and our place within it? So as we're closing out here, here's what we can ponder about everything that we shared today. Will there be a day we stop worshiping the sun or Saturn? And will solstice celebrations and New Year's Day celebrations go? What if, I used to think the reason why I stopped, I might have seen this in the description even, why I stopped worshiping or why I stopped celebrating these days is I was like getting to a point, like young Neil, like 18, 19 to 25. I was like, every day should be a celebration. Why do we have to wait to these specific days? I don't like celebrating birthdays and Christmas and all this stuff. We're always waiting for this day. Why is it that everybody's joyous now? Why can't we be joyous throughout the whole year? Why can't we spend every day like it's an incredible day on earth? What would happen if we all get to a point where we have our basic needs met, we're at peace with ourselves, we're at peace with each other, and every day is a holiday, even if we're working, just because we feel that peace? That's where we're going, right? That's why we're doing this work, to get to a place where we can all just completely be in joy of our existence. Will there be a day where we stop that, where we stop worshiping, when we stop waiting for that holiday season? What will happen? Or will it shift to more of like a festive intentional experience? What will happen once we become conscious of how blind we've been following rituals? What I noticed in the last 2 to 3 years is talk show hosts, news anchors, different people start now bringing in and talking about the pagan connection to the ancient traditions. A lot of times they do it in a way where they're trying to show face or trying to make people realize that it doesn't take away from being Christian, right? Because these questions are coming up. But there's a reason why I'm doing this presentation now. It gets bigger every year while different anchors are being asked this question. Even on the Breakfast Club, I forget that fundamental Christian guy's name, but somebody called in and asked him and said, hey, I found out that this, that Christmas was once a pagan holiday and it was Saturnalia. And he just did all this lip service trying to make sure this person realized that Christmas is a Christian holiday and it doesn't take away from that, right? But it even leaked into something like that, which was like hardcore fundamental. So it's coming to the surface. And what will happen when we stop being so blind to these rituals, right? There's no reason to have blind faith. There's enough things to have complete open eyes about. Will it add more to it since we can be more intentional? Instead of worshiping the sun, maybe we'll give reverence and gratitude to it, but not base our existence on its worship. What comes after sun worship? Do we move into a greater truth? Do we transcend time as it is? Or do we move to the next step up? Instead of our position in relation to our sun and our rotation around it, do we then do our rotation of our solar system around a galaxy, like many ancient civilizations like the Maya and more spoke about in regards to the central sun? Do we move from sun worship to galactic reverence? And again, that's a whole presentation itself. My galactic origins presentation speaks a bit about this, but maybe we move into the secular understanding of how everything is in cycles, because even the whole thing with solstice is a representation of the cycles of nature, right? And as we get into that and we pay homage and reverence to the central sun, the black hole, in which the supermassive black hole in which we all rotate around, do we then also usher in galactic consciousness, which could be the perfect solution for us to rejoin the galactic community? And that is my presentation on the pagan origins of Christmas and New Year's Eve. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Let's take a look at some comments here and see what you guys are feeling. Here we go. Let's talk here. Okay. Juliana agrees. She says, every day is a holiday. Agreed. How do we get to the level of consciousness and being that we can implement that? You're very welcome, guys. Thank you for this exciting presentation. I would join with everyone who preserves the unity and conscious we truly are. Blessings on the journey, one and all. We're all beacons receiving this frequency. And now it's up to us to take it out and spread it around the world. The sun is a portal to the galactic plan. Yeah, okay, I love these comments coming in. Let's read these comments because you guys are saying some cool things. We have to commune in a way that we connect through the portals of consciousness. El Mayu is saying, forgive my ignorance, but is the central sun as a black hole, a collapsed star, or that from which our universe and future universes or galaxies are born? I'm always hearing the term central sun, but it's never expanded upon. Go to my YouTube, Galactic Origins. There's a whole 1 hour just on the central sun, and hopefully that'll answer some questions. But I would say that they used to think that all black holes were collapsed stars and suns, but now they're realizing that the central supermassive black holes are too huge, that there are no suns that massive. So the central sun, the black hole in the center of the galaxy, from my opinion, also conventionally accepted from many others, is not actually a collapsed sun, but it is maybe some sort of infinite singularity that just collapsed space-time in that position. How it got created, I'm not too sure. Beautiful. Thank you, everybody, so much. All right, so as we close out here, I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys the Star Beings conference one more time. Let everybody know about it to tune into that. If you have any comments or questions, keep them going, and I will go ahead and check them out again before we close out. We have another comment here saying the moon is an obstacle to human freedom and ascension. So that's an interesting component where it does have an effect on human consciousness and our experience on Earth. Yes. Whether it's an obstacle or whether we're on a track and field running around the track, and in order to create the competition that we need in order to win, we put these obstacles in front of ourselves. So it could be like an obstacle that we're a victim to, or it could be an obstacle that is giving us the opportunity to realize who we truly are and wake up. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and show the Ultimate Star Beings conference again. The new website will be launched very, very soon. I know I've been saying this so much. It's insane. Honestly, guys, I wanted to give up like 5 times this last year. This last year has been so incredibly challenging and tough for me. I'm ready for a new experience. Last 6 months in London were just insane. It's probably been the most challenging time of my life. And the website as well has been just like the biggest issue. It's taken me 3 years. I've been building this new website for 3 years, and we're in the final stretch. And I'm staying true to it. I'm sticking to it. We're going to launch this whole thing. And there's something energetically within me that I feel will be able to drop into a sense of more peace once we launch this new site. I don't know really what I'm going with, what I'm saying right now, but I'm just trying to express to you that it's been crazy. So I'm really excited for us just to be able to move into this new milestone, because I've been building it for 3 years. I've been waiting for an opportunity to launch something greater and bigger for Portal to Ascension so we can hit the new milestone and have a really big impact on the world. We've done so much. We work with so many people. And now I have the team finally that I'm working with as well. And we are taking our production to a whole other level. Documentaries, iPhone app, Android app, all of that's in the works and will be coming out. And of course, events such as this, the Ultimate Star Beings event. So the way you go there, for everybody tuning in, is you go to the homepage on Portal Ascension, First of all, if you just want to sign up, name, email, go ahead, sign up. You'll get access to the Watch Now page. You can take a look there. We have lots of free content for you. But if you go to a homepage, portaltoascension.org, go to upcoming events. We have a few events here. This one's also a free event, How to Prepare for ET Contact on January 1st. The Ultimate Star Beings Conference. Go ahead and select that. We got incredible people, Sandra Walter, Mary Rodwell, Craig Campoboso, Althea, Light Codes, Flo Coruna, Marissa Starseeded, Geraldine Orozco, Rebecca Hardcastle, Alan Steinfeld, Raquel Spring, Emily Gosh, it's Dr. Stephanie Redfeather. And it's going to be 4 days, 10 hours a day. Everybody gets unlimited replay access, and it's free. So it's going to be live on YouTube. It's going to be live on multiple YouTubes. We're going to go live on Instagram and get this out to many people as possible. Even if you can't attend live, even if you can only attend a little bit, go ahead and sign up energetically. Put your energy into this field, please. We'll give you the replays. And if you can be a part of it, be a part of the mass meditations. Imagine thousands of us meditating at the same time, January 12th to 15th, on peaceful open contact with the stars, right? That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be ushering the conversation. This event is a huge event in moving the conversation to what's that in the sky, to who and what are these beings, and what does it mean for the future of humanity. So portaltoascension.org, upcoming events. The last event I'm going to share with you now is Portal to Ascension 2024 Glastonbury, our second annual conference in Glastonbury, ascensionglastonbury.com. Ascensionglastonbury.com is in England. September 27th to 29th. It's going to really be starting on the 25th because we're going to do a tour of Avalon on the 25th, another tour on the 26th. But the actual main conference is 27th to 29th. And this is all the way in West England, in Somerset, at Glastonbury, also known as Ancient Avalon, where the stories of King Arthur are. We have Magenta Pixie will be there, Adam Apollo's coming in, Tim Tactics, Laura Eisenhower, Sarah Brexman Cosma, Oliver Huntley, Maria Wheatley, myself, Nana Kasha, Phil Gruber, Joan of Angels, Alan Steinfeld. And this lady here, Charmaine, she actually wrote a book, The Hybrids. She was a co-author with Barbara Lamb. And we're going to have a few more people joining it too. Debbie Dashinger. It's going to be so fun. Not only are we going to be in the middle of Glastonbury, but we're going to be right next to King Arthur's Abbey. We're going to be walking distance with King Arthur's Abbey, the White Springs, the Chalice Wells. There's all these amazing things that are right there. And honestly, I've done a lot of events, thousands of events, but I got to say that Glastonbury was one of the most impactful, fun events ever. People were speaking about it in the town for days, months to come. I went back there a few weeks ago, and so I told someone I'm part of Portal to Ascension, and they're like, "Oh my God, I heard about this event." And people were saying that, all of our people were there. Hundreds. We had 200 people going in and out of the store, spreading the frequency, spreading the information, awareness that we had, and we had a tangible shift in that time. And Glastonbury actually has the ley lines are going through it, right? The Michael's line is going through it. So it's also known as the heart chakra center of the earth. So a lot of people go there for positive and nefarious intentions, and we're there doing some grid work in the disguise of a conference. So if you're interested in that, ascensionglastonbury.com, you can also sign up for the live stream. And with that, everybody, I'm just going to take a look at one last thing of your comments here, and just thank you all so much for being a part of this. The sun is reborn, and the tree represents the tree of life. Every day celebrated the Christ consciousness as much as possible. Opening up to more of our star relatives. Thank you so much, Doris. It's good to see you. Doris has been a long time supporter of Portal to Ascension. Thank you for our excellent work. Appreciate you, Doris. Okay, if you guys want to see this presentation again, we have 111 people watching right now. Just got to say it, 111. Okay, now we're 112. You guys ruined it. One person came in. But if you guys want to rewatch this, youtube.com/portal to ascension, youtube.com/portal to ascension. And with that, I will say a poem. And then we shall call it for today. There we go. Black Sun. This is a good one. Okay. All right. Ooh, let's do this. I'm going to do something fun. I'm going to play a video and do my poetry in the background while the video is playing. Okay, let's do... All right, here we go. Here's the Pleiades. Looking at the Pleiades, 111 people in the room. Let's loop this video. When the black sun radiates energy from divine immaculate conception, we hold thee as the God we wish to see, some wish to be. Through enlightening their own being with internal peace, anarchy through poetry is just one piece of the oceanic breeze. I will split the seas so we can pass freely to lands promised to me by bloodline. So you see, we're all a part of the divine. Heaven on earth, constant search to find the meaning to life is only one part of reality. Intergalactic universal beliefs, interdimensional beings, enhanced communication through planetary rings. We speak to the angels and gods who gave up their wings. Came to this place to bring lower frequencies of emotions such as hatred and jealousy. As long as they remain, we can never truly be set free. So they say, concentrate on love. Not of the physical kind, the type that clouds your mind, blind to things in plain sight. Love is different when it comes from above. Not in the material world. Believe in her. Fill my conscious mind with ether. I see the door swinging open and close. My love was once blocked by pain and woes. When the sky splits open, heaven will show we are all one, no matter friend or foe. It has already been done. The future has already happened through the eyes of the last black sun. Through the eyes of the last black sun. Through the eyes of the last black sun. Thank you all so much. Love and appreciate every single one of you. Stay tuned for epicness and Portal to Ascension next year. Please do support and be a part of these events. We're just going to keep moving forward, keep creating magic. And as we create this new world, we're at the beginning phases of something great. We're at the beginning phases of a whole new paradigm, a whole new astrological sign, a whole new religion, a whole new belief system, right? And it might be crazy and chaotic in the world, but these are just the growing pains needed for the old systems to crumble. And I'm just appreciative that we get to do this together and spend this time together here today. So love you all. Have a beautiful solstice, Saturnalia, Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, pagan worshiping, Saturn worshiping, whatever it is. Have a beautiful end of the year and a great New Year's. And let's just move forward in complete knowingness that we are stepping into a greater truth for all of humanity. So I'll see you guys later, and we're going to close out by walking through the portal.